Welcome back into the Viking Central podcast. I'm Brett. I'm here with my host. Get used to him, Austin Dowdle. How we doing?
Doing pretty good. Excited to get going here today.
Yeah, we have a fun little video here today, and we're gonna talk some Sam Darnold later as well. We'll probably release a separate video because that's kind of the big talk today. The deadline for the franchise tags at like 3:00, I think, today Central Time.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big talker, but this has kind of been circulating around social media a little bit, and I feel like it's ever since he's not been with the Vikings, it's been like a talker in the offseason. But we're going to talk some Adam Thielen, just to see if there is a certain possibility where he could come back to the Vikings maybe. But before we do get into that, I do want to shout out our sponsor real quick, Stead Foods. Check out Stead Foods, a Minnesota-based candy company specialized in delicious chocolate bars. They have something for everyone, and of course, my personal favorite, caramel crack, will keep you coming back for more. It is just super delicious. Use code VC10 for 10% off and use the link on the screen or in the description. Again, use code VC10 for 10% off and use the link on the screen or in the description. All right, Adam Thielen. It's not that we have a huge need at wide receiver. Obviously, we got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Jalen Naylor was pretty good last year. He did struggle with drops a little bit. But Adam Thielen, 34 years old, still a really solid wide receiver. What do you kind of think about a possibility of like a reunion in Minnesota? Do you think it's possible at all? Do you want it to be a possibility? What are you kind of looking at there, Austin?
The way I see this as a perfect fit.
Yeah.
I think Adam Thielen wants to be in an opportunity where he wants to win, and obviously he's born and raised here, lives in Woodbury, right down the road from TCO. I think this is definitely a place where he would feel comfortable coming back. He obviously is familiar with Kevin O'Connell a little bit, and like you brought up, it's not like he was bad last year when he came back from the injury. Him and Bryce Young had a great connection. He's still a great red zone threat that he's always been, and I kind of think that's where the Vikings are lacking is red zone threats, especially with Hawkinson not fully healthy last year. But
Yep.
I think that with him coming back, and if we could get someone like an Adam Thielen, I think our red zone threats would be impossible to stop.
Yeah, that's a good point, because even if he is 34 years old, his ability to get open is still there, especially in the red zone, like you said. Now, he's not going to be your deep threat guy anymore, where he could stretch the field when he was 26, 27, 28 years old. But you got Jordan Addison for that more than anything. And then Jalen Naylor could still be your wide receiver forward for certain packages as well. But just the guy that moves the sticks, who's done it for a long time, like you said, got some continuity with Kevin O'Connell. From Minnesota, obviously, everyone knows that. But he also worked out with J.J. McCarthy like all last offseason, which, there could be some chemistry there already. And, he's a Vikings fan at heart the way it is. So to end his career here, he's going to be 35 by the time the regular season starts. But during his 33 and 34-year-old seasons, he had 151 catches for over 1,600 yards and 9 touchdowns. Like, he's still getting it done. And he wouldn't have like a super big workload because obviously you do have two really good wide receivers. But I'm kind of curious like where Carolina would be at, because he's still under contract. And I think they really like him with Bryce Young. So I don't know if they'd be like inclined to do a trade or release him unless he like asks for like a release or a trade. I just don't see where they would be, I guess, in that situation. More than anything.
Yeah. I mean, that was going to be my next point. I think they really like having a veteran presence with Bryce Young and Adam Thielen. Really easy to work with, like you said. He knows how to get open, making it easier for a young quarterback. So I do think that might become a problem. Trying to get him via trade, I don't think they'll cut him. So I don't know how realistic it really is, but I think it's a real fun possibility to think about because it is possible Thielen could request something like this to happen. So
yeah,
I think there is some legs with this.
Yeah, and like you said right at the beginning, like he's gonna want to be like on a winning team. Like he wants to play playoff football. He wants to be in contention, and I don't see Carolina being there right now. I know that division's not super strong. But at the end of the day, Tampa Bay is probably gonna be the leader of that division for a while. New Orleans is kind of in a weird situation. But yeah, it's interesting because I think he would be a great fit here, just to be that number 3 guy. And I kind of want to talk about like some other options too, like a power ranking of like who would you want to be like a wide receiver 3 on this team. And like there's a couple different options. I know there at the beginning of the offseason there was that Cooper Kupp steam. Like what's going to happen there? I would really like Cooper Kupp here. He's a couple years younger, but feel like he almost has diminished a little bit more than Adam Thielen in certain ways from what he was anyway. He was one of the best wide receivers in the league there for a year or two with Kevin O'Connell. So I don't know at the end of the day, would Kevin O'Connell rather have Cooper Kupp over Adam Thielen just because he worked with him more with LA? But also Jalen Naylor, do you want to give him another shot? He's on a contract year. And then there's also I don't think we're going to draft a wide receiver necessarily this year because of the limited cap space, or not cap space, draft capital. It's just not a super big need. But I feel like between like Jalen Naylor, Cooper Kupp, Adam Thielen, those are like my top 3 options I'm looking at. Is there any certain other options that you kind of look at for that number 3 spot? Or is that kind of the same wavelength?
Well, I'm kind of in the same position as you because there's not really that much out there for like the wide receiver 3 spot. There's a lot of like there's a lot of like Chris Godwins out there that are going to require too much money where I don't see it as it's realistic. But I mean, in terms of someone I think that could potentially become undrafted, I think Dante Thornton Jr. out of Tennessee, he is projected in the late rounds there, and I really like him at 6'5" and runs a 4.3 30. So I'm thinking someone like that, maybe he somehow gets undrafted.
Sure.
And we could sign him through in free agency. So that's my big guy I was looking at. I really liked him at Tennessee.
Yeah. No, and yeah, a big body guy is something that I think we would really need, especially at the wide receiver spot. I know we got your tight end, TJ Hawkinson. Obviously, he's the big bodied guy, but we don't really have that in the wide receiver group. Like Justin Jefferson's actually not the biggest guy. He's super explosive, runs great routes, obviously, but Jordan Addison's smaller. Jalen Naylor's a smaller wide receiver, so we don't really have that like possession wide receiver per se. But I would really like that as well. And I, like you said, I don't think we're going to draft a wide receiver unless it's undrafted, or say we gain another pick. We end up with like 7 picks in the draft somehow after a trade down or something like that. Then I could maybe see us taking a flyer in the 5th, 6th, 7th round. But yeah, I feel like the top 3 options, just running it back with Jalen Naylor, or maybe like a guy like Adam Thielen, which again, the talk is fun, but is that actually going to happen because he is with Carolina under contract and everything like that? I think Cooper Kupp is still the interesting one, in my opinion, just to see if he does get released by Los Angeles, because I know Kevin O'Connell would really love to have Cooper Kupp here. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, I agree with you. My problem with Cooper Kupp is I think he's going to have a lot more of a market than, say, Adam Thielen. So I don't think that we're going to want to overpay to get Cooper Kupp, but I could see him wanting to come back and play with Kevin O'Connell. He has that effect on players, as we've seen so far. So there is a possibility that maybe he would take a pay cut to come here if he were to be released. But yeah. I think that the one that makes the most sense is probably Jalen Naylor, and I can bet you he's been working on his hands. He's a speedy guy, and he did well with us last year. So I don't think that would be the end of the world per se, but like you said, it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, and I think they're going to be looking more next year probably because Jalen Naylor's on a contract year, and guys usually play up to their potential during contract years because they're trying to get paid in the next offseason. So they're probably going to let him walk after this year, and then obviously we're going to have a bigger need next year with the wide receiver 3 spot. Still should have a decent amount of cap space and should have more draft capital to address that position of need. But again, just a good little talker to talk about. And I agree with Cooper Kupp. If he's going to get paid, $14, $15, $16 million a year, yeah, I'm out. But at say $7-8 million somehow he takes a discount, I'm all for that. Because that cap hit it'd be like $4 or $5 million. And with a guy with potential like Cooper Kupp in this offense, I would be all for that. But he will have a pretty hot market, in my opinion, if he does end up getting released. I'm not sold that he's getting released yet from LA, especially now Stafford's back. That's cleaned up.
Yeah, I
And
think
just like,
Stafford really likes him.
oh
Reports
yeah,
are showing that if Stafford was getting traded, that Cooper Kupp was going to be in that package as
yep,
well, from what I saw. So,
yep,
yeah.
yeah. I think their families are really close. Like their wives are like best friends, I think, and everything like that. So I think during those negotiations, I think Stafford might have mentioned like you got to get Cooper back in the building. So, but yeah, good little talker. You know, Adam Thielen could be a possibility. Wide receiver 3 position. Not so much up in the air right now. Jalen Naylor's probably the leading candidate to be the wide receiver 3 again for 2025. But just a fun little talk. Thanks, Austin.
Thank you.
Viking Central. We'll see you guys in the next episode.